Jay's core gripped the broken controls of his small ship, his hands shaking as sparks jumped from the panels behind him. The stars flashed with the cold light of alien engines. The raiders were coming, and they were hungry for blood. His ship alarms screamed again and again, like it was begging him to survive. Jace wished he could beg too, but his throat felt too dry to speak. He had been scavenging alone in the edge of the asteroid belt. It was supposed to be a safe route, calm and empty. But today, the raiders found him. A human alone, easy prey. They fired without warning, cutting off his escape and damaging his engines. Now his ship drifted like a wounded animal, weak and slow. Jace pushed every button, even the ones he knew were useless. Smoke filled the air, stinging his eyes as he forced the ship forward. He saw nothing ahead except dark rocks floating endlessly. Then his scanner beeped, showing a massive shape hidden behind two giant asteroids. A giant shadow of a ship, silent and drifting. It was derelict, broken, but huge enough to block the raider's view if he got close. Jace turned toward it without thinking, because thinking meant fear, and fear meant death. His ship scraped against an asteroid, metal screaming like a dying beast. He fought the controls and headed straight for the strange, dark hall. It looked ancient, older than any human record. Strange marks covered the surface, glowing faintly like old scars. The raiders were closer now, their voices echoing through his comms. "Human, stop running. We only want your ship, parts and your bones." Jace turned the comms off before he heard the rest. He pushed the thrusters one last time, and the ship shot forward. He braced for impact as he slammed into the derelict side. The crash was violent, but somehow he survived. His ship lights died, leaving him in darkness. Only the faint glow of the derelict ship remained outside. Jace unbuckled himself, stumbling toward the emergency exit. But suddenly, the derelict ship moved. A deep rumble echoed through its metal skin. Ancient lights flickered like eyes opening after a long sleep. Jace froze, unsure if he should run or pray. Then, with a thunderous hiss, a large ramp on the derelict ship unfolded downward. A bright white light spilled out, cutting through the darkness. The raiders arrived at that exact moment, their small fighters locking onto his broken ship. Jace felt their weapons charging, ready to vaporize him. Then a voice came from the derelict ship, sharp, loud and full of attitude. "Get in, you ugly piece of meat." Jace blinked, confused. Was that meant for him? Was it a trap? Was it some automated system? The voice came again, angrier this time. "I said get in before they blast you into dust." Jace looked at the raiders, who were seconds from firing. He looked at the ramp full of bright white light. He didn't know what waited inside. But dying outside wasn't a smart option. He ran, pushing himself across the cracked metal floor of his ruined ship. He jumped through the air, landing on the derelict ramp just as lasers shot past him. The ramp shook under his feet, moving like a living thing. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the ramp lifted instantly behind him. Raider shots hit the hull, shaking the whole corridor. Inside it was dim, cold, and silent, except for a low humming sound. Jace raised his hands, ready to surrender if needed. He didn't know who the voice belonged to. He didn't know if he was saved or trapped. Then, from the shadows at the far end, a figure stepped forward, a woman tall, with blue skin and glowing cybernetic eyes. She wore old battle armor scratched from years of war. She pointed a weapon at him, but smirked like she had already judged him. "So," she said, "the ship wasn't wrong. You are ugly." Her tone was mocking, but her eyes were sharp and studying him. Jace didn't know what to say. He only knew one thing. His life had just taken a turn he never expected. And whatever this ship was, whatever this strange woman wanted, He was now part of something much bigger than running from raiders. Jace stood frozen in the dim corridor, his breath shaking in his chest as the blue-skinned woman stared at him. Her glowing cybernetic eye scanned him from head to toe. Humming softly like a small engine, she didn't lower her weapon. But she didn't pull the trigger either. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him as if he were some strange animal she had never seen before. "Relax, Meatface," she finally said. Her voice calm but sharp like a blade. "If I wanted you dead, you would already be a smudge on the floor." Jace swallowed hard. Unsure if that was comforting or terrifying, he raised his hands anyway. A soft tremble running through his fingers. The corridor lights flickered around them, glowing with a sickly white shine as if the ship itself was waking up from a long sleep. "Who are you?" Jace asked carefully. The woman holstered her weapon but didn't smile. "Name's Vexa," she said, stepping closer with a confident stride. "And this ship? Well, it's not really mine." She tapped the wall beside her, and the metal responded with a low pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Jace flinched, staring at the moving light that ran along the ship's walls. "It's alive," he whispered without meaning to. Vexa shrugged. "Alive enough," she said. "It listens, it watches, and it chooses." Her eyes narrowed, and for some reason, "it chose you." Jace did not like that. He backed up a step. But the floor beneath him pulsed again, warming under his boots as if reacting to his fear. Vexa noticed immediately, her smirk returning. "See that?" she said softly. "It reacts to your emotions." Jace stared in confusion. "Why mine?" "Because you're human," Vexa said sharply. As if the answer were obvious, humans have chaotic energy. She folded her arms. "This ship likes that." Before Jace could respond, the ship shook violently. The sound of raider weapons echoed through the walls, making metal scream. "They're attaching boarding spikes," Vexa growled, her cybernetic eye flashing red for a moment. "They want you and me alive or dead." Fear surged through Jace like electricity. The ship reacted instantly, lights brightening, engines humming, the floor vibrating under his feet. Vexa smiled coldly. "Good. Keep feeling that," she said. "The ship feeds on your panic." Jace frowned. "That doesn't sound like a good thing." "It is if you want to live," Vexa replied, pulling a control panel from the wall. "Come on. I need your help." She led him down a long corridor that twisted like a metal spine. The ship felt larger on the inside than it looked outside, with strange branching pathways and shadowed rooms. Vexa moved with confidence, like she had memorized each turn. But Jace felt the walls shifting slightly as he walked, as if adjusting to him. They reached a large chamber filled with glowing tubes and swirling blue lights. "This is the ship's nerve room," Vexa said, touching a pillar that reacted to her hand. "It reads emotions and converts them into power." Jace didn't fully understand, but he nodded anyway. His heart thumped faster as another heavy impact hit the hull. "Great," Vexa muttered, checking screens that flickered in alien symbols. "They're almost inside." She glanced back at Jace. "Listen, human. I didn't save you out of kindness." Her voice became serious, almost cold. "I need this ship to leave this sector, but it will not burn full power for me." She pointed at him. "It will burn for you." Jace blinked in disbelief. "So you expect me to?" "What?" "Feel things," Vexa said bluntly. "Fear, anger, survival instinct, whatever you've got." Jace shook his head. "That's insane." "Whatever works," Vexa replied, "and trust me, nothing motivates humans like death." The wall snapped open suddenly, revealing a view screen. Outside, raider ships crawled along the hull like insects, drilling and burning their way toward the airlocks. Jace's stomach dropped as he saw sparks flying from the ship's skin. "They're going to break in," he whispered. His voice trembled, and the ship's lights surged like fire around them. Vexa grinned. That's it. Keep going. But Jace didn't want to feel fear. He wanted to run. He wanted to escape everything. Even the strange living ship around him. The ship pulsed again. Humming louder, as if sensing his desperation, Vexa touched another pillar. "It's sinking with you," she said quietly. I've never seen it respond this fast. Jace didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. Another crash echoed from the hallway above them. Followed by the screech of metal being torn open, Vexa grabbed her weapon again. "They're boarding." She looked at Jace with a strange mix of annoyance and respect. "Stay close," she said. "And try not to faint." Jace nodded, even though he wasn't sure he could stay on his feet. The ship's heartbeat grew louder, faster, stronger. Something ancient was waking inside the walls. Something that had chosen him for reasons he didn't understand. And now, with the raiders breaking through the hull, he had no choice but to trust the blue-skinned stranger, the living ship, and whatever strange fate had brought him through that ramp. The first thing Jace heard was metal ripping open above them. The sound was sharp and violent, like claws tearing through steel. The whole ship shook as dust and broken pieces fell from the ceiling. Vex's cybernetic eye flashed bright red, glowing like a warning light. "They're inside the upper corridor," she said. Gripping her weapon tightly, Jace felt his heart slam against his ribs. And the ship reacted instantly. Blue lines along the walls glowed brighter. Pulsing like veins under living skin, the floor warmed beneath his boots as if feeding on his fear. Vexa smirked when she saw the lights growing stronger. "Good, the ship likes your terror," she said. "Keep it up. I'm not doing it on purpose," Jace shot back. But his voice trembled anyway. Another violent boom echoed through the ship. And the walls trembled. This time, Jace felt something new. A strange emotional wave from the ship itself. Almost like it was trembling with him. Almost like it was connected. Vexa tapped the wall with her armored hand. "The ship is sinking to you faster than I expected." Her voice had a hint of awe. "Something she rarely showed, but we don't have time to celebrate," she added. "The raiders want this ship, and they want you." "Why me?" Jace asked. His voice low, Vexa shrugged. "They like capturing humans," she said harshly. "They sell them. Or eat them." Jace's stomach twisted. And the lights flared brighter around him. Vexa nodded. "Yeah? That's the kind of fear we need." A loud clang echoed through the hall. Followed by heavy footsteps, the raiders were moving fast. Their boots slammed against the floor, getting closer and closer. Vexa pulled Jace behind a curved metal structure that looked like a pillar but felt alive. "Stay behind me," she said, "and trust the ship." Jace didn't know how to trust a living ship. But he nodded, pressing his back against the wall. His hands shook uncontrollably. And the lights reacted again, glowing even brighter. Vexa whispered something under her breath. It sounded like ancient words, a command, maybe. Then the pillar beside them opened like a blooming flower, revealing glowing blue spikes. "What is that?" Jace whispered. "Defense system," Vexa replied. "Powered by you." The footsteps grew louder, echoing through the corridor. A deep, growling voice shouted something in a language Jace did not understand. Then the raiders appeared tall, armored. With glowing red visors and sharp claws, the first raider stepped into the nerve room, raising a heavy weapon, but before he could aim, the pillar responded to Jace's fear. Blue spikes shot out, firing bolts of light across the room. The raider screamed as the bolts hit him. He fell to the ground, twitching. Smoke rising from his armor, Jace gasped. Did I do that?" Vexa gave a proud half-smile. "You and the ship," but more raiders poured into the room. Their weapons ready, Vexa ran forward with a roar, her cybernetic eye brightening as she fired her weapon. Blue energy blasted from her gun, hitting 2 raiders and sending them flying. Jace ducked as sparks and smoke filled the air. He could feel his panic rising higher and higher, and the ship's energy rose with him. The floor beneath him shifted suddenly, forming a protective barrier. It moved like water, but felt solid under his hands. The raiders fired at it, but the barrier absorbed everything. "Nice," Vexa shouted over the chaos. "The ship likes keeping you alive." Jace peeked through a gap, watching Vexa move with deadly speed. She was like a storm, flipping between raiders. Striking fast, firing faster. Her cybernetic eye tracked every movement with perfect accuracy. But even she couldn't handle all of them alone. A massive raider bigger than the rest charged toward her. He swung a heavy blade, and Vexa barely dodged in time. Another raider grabbed her arm from behind. Pulling her back, Vexa cried out in anger. Trying to break free, Jace's fear surged. Exploding in his chest like a shockwave, the ship felt it instantly. The lights blazed, the walls hummed loudly, and a sudden burst of energy shot from the floor. It hit the raider holding Vexa, throwing him across the room. Vexa spun free, landing on her feet. She glanced at Jace with surprise. "You're stronger than I thought." Jace didn't feel strong, he felt terrified. But somehow, the ship used that fear as fuel. The remaining raiders hesitated as blue energy danced across the walls. The ship let out a deep, rumbling sound, like an angry beast waking up. Vexa tilted her head, listening to the humming. "It's protecting you," she said softly. "It's choosing you." Jace stepped out from behind the barrier. Even though his legs shook, the raiders backed away. Confused by the ship's reaction, Vexa pointed her weapon at them with a confident smirk. "You fools picked the wrong human today," she said. The ship unleashed a final wave of blue energy. It blasted through the corridor, forcing the raiders to retreat. The walls sealed themselves shut. Blocking any remaining attackers, silence slowly filled the room. Only Jace's shaky breathing and the soft hum of the ship remained. Vexa lowered her weapon and walked toward him. "Looks like you're not just some ugly piece of meat after all," she said quietly. Jace tried to respond, but words failed him. The ship glowed warmly around him, almost like it was alive with pride. And Jace realized something terrifying and strange. He wasn't hiding inside this ship anymore. He was becoming part of it. The nerve room slowly grew quiet. The blue lights softening until the chamber felt almost peaceful. Jace leaned against the nearest wall, breathing hard, his heart still racing like it wanted to escape his chest. The ship reacted to every beat, glowing with a slow and steady rhythm that felt almost comforting. Vexa wiped the raider dust off her armor and walked toward him with calm. "Steady steps." "Well," she said with a raised brow. "That was messy, but we're alive." Jace tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. What is happening to this ship?" Vexa stared at him for a long moment, studying him again with that cold, calculating eye of hers. "Time you learned the truth," she said, turning away and motioning for him to follow. Jace hesitated, then pushed himself forward, his legs shaking but moving. The corridor lights brightened as he stepped into the hallway. As if guiding him, Vexa glanced back and smirked. "See? It's reacting to your steps." They walked deeper into the derelict ship, down winding metal tunnels that felt like they belonged inside a giant beast. Jace noticed faint patterns glowing on the walls, strange symbols like old runes mixed with stars. The ship hummed softly as they passed, almost like it was whispering. But the words were too ancient to understand. Finally, they reached a wide circular chamber filled with floating crystals and transparent tubes. Blue energy flowed inside each tube like liquid light, swirling and dancing. At the center of the room stood a massive core shaped like a giant vertical heart made of metal and light. It pulsed slowly, each beat shaking the room like a quiet thunder. "This," Vexa said, placing her hand on the glowing structure, "is the living core." Jace approached carefully, feeling a strange pull toward it. As he stepped closer, the heart-like core brightened, pulsing faster as if recognizing him. Vex's eyes widened slightly. "There it is again," she muttered. "It reacts to you more than it ever reacted to me." Jace swallowed. Why? Vexa stepped away from the core and folded her arms, her expression turning serious. "This ship was built by the architects," she said, "an ancient race that disappeared long before your human history even began." She tapped her cybernetic eye, which projected a faint hologram of star maps and old symbols. "They were powerful," she continued, "and they made ships like this, live thinking." "Emotional," Jace looked at her in confusion. "Ships with emotions," Vexa nodded. "Yes. Because emotion is power," she pointed at him, "and humans. You feel emotion more strongly than most species." Jace frowned. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" Vexa smirked. "Take it however you want." The core pulsed again, sending a wave of warm energy through the chamber. Jace felt it wash over him like a comforting breeze. "It feels alive," he whispered. Vexa nodded. "Alive and bonded." "Bonded," Jace repeated. "Yes," Vexa said, her voice turning softer. "You and the ship are connected now." Jace stepped back in shock. "I didn't agree to this." "You didn't have to," Vexa replied. "The ship chose you on its own." Another pulse of light ran down the walls. Brighter this time, Vexa stared at the glowing symbols, her expression tightening. "This is strange," she said. "It rejected every warrior, every pilot I brought here." Her voice lowered. "But you, a random human scavenger, accepts fully." Jace felt a deep chill crawl through his body. He didn't feel special. He didn't feel powerful. He just felt scared, confused, and very out of place. "What does the ship want from me?" he asked quietly. Vexa didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer to the core and whispered an old phrase in her language. The ship responded by opening a holographic display above the heart-like core. The hologram showed star systems, battles, and ruined worlds, and then human shapes, silhouettes glowing with the same blue energy as the core. Jace stepped closer, eyes wide. "These are humans," he whispered. "Not exactly," Vexa said. "They were the architect's chosen pilots, humanoid beings from thousands of years ago. But they look human," Jace insisted, his voice cracking. "Similar," Vexa replied. "Close enough that the ship sees you as the successor." Jace stared at the glowing human-like figures. He felt the pull again, deep, ancient. Almost like the ship was calling him. The core thumped louder, like a heartbeat, begging for connection. "Why me?" Jace whispered again. Vexa sighed, her voice calm but heavy. "Because you were the first human to come close enough." She looked at him with a rare softness. "And because you have something inside you fear. Stubbornness, willpower." She pointed at the core. "Things this ship can use." The floor shook suddenly as a distant explosion rattled through the ship. Vexa turned toward the doorway, eyes narrowing. "More raiders," she said. "They're not giving up." She pulled her weapon out again. "Ready for another fight?" Jace felt the ship react instantly. The light sharpened, the core glowed brighter. He felt the connection tighten, like invisible threads tying him to the ship. Vexa looked at him with a serious expression. "Whether you like it or not, human," she said. "You are now the heart of this ship, and if we're going to survive, what's coming next? We need you." Jace's fear rose again. But this time, there was something else beneath it, a strange, growing sense of purpose. The ship pulsed warmly in response, almost like it agreed. **. The ship trembled again as another explosion echoed somewhere deep in its hull. Jace flinched, gripping the edge of the glowing platform near the living core. The lights around him flickered like panicked eyes. Reacting to his heartbeat, Vexa sprinted toward the doorway, her armor rattling softly with each step. "They found us again," she said, her voice sharper than before. "We need to move." Jace nodded, his legs still unsteady. But the ship reacted the moment he tried to stand. A warm pulse ran through the floor like it was helping him balance. Vexa noticed and smirked slightly. "The ship's babying you," she said. "Don't get used to it." Jace ignored her tone and followed her quickly, the hallway lights brightening with every step he took. The ship seemed eager to get away from the raiders. They reached the main control chamber, a large room shaped like a half-circle full of floating screens and shifting symbols. The panels pulsed with life, moving like jellyfish glowing under deep water. A transparent window at the front showed empty space, stars blinking coldly, until flashing red lights appeared from the far right side. Dozens of raider ships emerged from the dark. "Chasing at full speed? There's too many," Jace whispered. Vexa threw herself into the co-pilot chair and strapped in. "That's why we're not fighting," she said. "We're running." Her fingers tapped a row of symbols, and the ship responded instantly. The engines roared alive like a beast shaking off chains. The window in front of them shifted, showing a swirling purple-blue cloud far ahead, a massive nebula, thick and glowing with lightning-like storms deep inside its belly. Jace froze. "We're going in there." "Yes," Vexa said. "It's the only place where the radar scanners won't work, but we won't be able to see either," Jace argued. "Exactly," Vexa replied with a grin. "That's why you're flying," Jace blinked. "Me." The ship pulsed warmly beneath him. As if answering, Vexa pointed at him. "You're the emotional engine." Remember? The raiders fired again. Bright red bolts shooting past the windows. One bolt hit the left hull, shaking the chamber hard enough to knock Jace into the pilot's seat. The moment he sat down, the seat curled around him, shaping itself to his back like a custom mold. Symbols rose from the armrests, glowing as if waiting for his touch. "I don't know how to fly this thing," Jace protested. "You don't need to know," Vexa said. "The ship will fly with your instincts." "That's not comforting," Jace muttered. "Good," Vexa said. "Fear makes the engines faster." The raiders closed in, forming a hunting pattern, their ships surrounding the derelict like wolves circling prey. Jace's heart hammered, and the ship felt it immediately. The engines surged, shaking the entire craft as it shot forward. Jace gripped the glowing controls, his breath coming fast. They raced toward the nebula, its swirling clouds growing larger and larger. Electric storms flashed inside it like purple lightning veins. Jace swallowed hard. "If we fly into that, we die." "Maybe," Vexa said casually. "But if we stay out here, we definitely die." The raiders fired a full volley, and the ship shook violently, almost spinning. "Hang on," Vexa shouted. Jace didn't need to be told. His fear spiked so fast that the ship reacted instantly. The engines screamed and threw them into the nebula like a comet diving into deep water. The moment they entered, everything went dark. The window filled with swirling colors and thick clouds that blocked every star. Storm flashes rippled through the nebula, painting the room in blue and purple blurs. The ship groaned under the pressure as strange gravity waves pulled at them. "Keep your mind clear," Vexa warned. "The nebula messes with thoughts." Jace couldn't keep his mind clear not when the ship was practically alive around him. He could feel its fear too, like a faint echo brushing against his mind. "I think the ship is scared," Jace whispered. "Then calm down," Vexa replied instantly. "Your emotions feed into it." Jace closed his eyes for a moment. Taking a long breath, he tried to focus on anything other than the raiders. The storms, the danger, he thought of quiet things, old scrapyards. Peaceful nights, the sound of soft rain on metal roofs. Slowly, the ship's shaking eased. The nebula storms parted a little. Forming a narrow path of clearer space, Vexa leaned forward, impressed. "You did that, Jace?" Opened his eyes, confused. "I didn't even move the controls. You didn't have to," she said. "The ship is reading your emotional map." An explosion echoed behind them as the raiders entered the nebula, but their ships shook violently. Unable to follow the same calm path, lightning storms struck them, tearing through their formations, scattering them in chaos. "We lost most of them," Vexa said with relief. "But the lead ship is still chasing." Jace felt a new emotion rising inside him, not fear. Not panic, but something fiercer, something stronger, determination. The ship pulsed warmly, matching that feeling. Vexa noticed and nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "The ship listens to strength, too." They flew deeper into the nebula, where ancient ruins drifted like broken bones of old stations. Jace steered instinctively, the ship following his emotions through impossible twists. And then the ship detected something ahead, a faint pulsing beacon deep in the nebula. Old, mysterious, and calling to them, Vex's expression changed instantly. "That's an architect beacon," she whispered. Jace felt the ship warm under him, almost like it recognized the call. "Should we go to it?" he asked. Vexa took a slow breath. "We have to," she said. "That beacon might hold answers about you. And this ship, and with the raiders still chasing them through the stormy nebula." Jace guided the living ship toward the ancient beacon, not knowing that the truth waiting there would change everything. The nebula clouds thinned as Jace guided the living ship toward the strange pulsing light ahead. Shimmering purple gas parted like curtains, revealing a massive metallic structure floating in silence. It looked like a broken moon at first, cracked open with glowing fractures shining blue from within as they came closer. The structure unfolded in Jace's view, a forgotten station, ancient, cold, and drifting for thousands of years. The beacon at its center blinked slowly, the light beating like a heart trying to stay alive. Jace felt that same heartbeat echo in his chest. Matching his own pulse perfectly, Vexa leaned forward in her seat, her cybernetic eye humming as it scanned the structure. "That's definitely architect design," she said quietly. "Look at the markings." They matched the ship. Jace swallowed. Feeling the ship react with a warm hum beneath him, the living ship slowed on its own, drifting gently toward the beacon as if pulled by invisible threads. "It's steering itself," Jace whispered. "No," Vexa corrected. "It's following you." Jace's throat tightened, unsure whether that meant he was special or simply trapped. He kept his hands on the glowing controls anyway, even though they weren't needed. The ship stopped at the station's docking ring, which opened like a giant metallic flower. The petals rotated outward, forming a stable entrance filled with faint blue mist. Vexa stood quickly and checked her weapon. "We don't know what's inside." Jace stood too. Even though his legs trembled, the ship opened a side panel, creating a pathway directly to the docking ramp, almost like it wanted them to enter. "That's not creepy at all," Jace muttered. Vexa shrugged. "Ancient tech is always creepy." Together they walked through the corridor, the lights adjusting to their footsteps. As they approached the ramp, it lowered with a quiet hiss, releasing a breath of cold air from the station. Jace stepped inside and instantly felt a pressure in the air. Not heavy, not painful, just strange, like the station was watching him. Blue lights flickered along the walls, awakening slowly, as if recognizing something familiar. Vexa moved beside him, scanning everything with her glowing eye. "This place has been dead for centuries," she whispered, "but it's waking because of you." Jace ignored the uneasy feeling crawling up his spine. He kept walking deeper into the station until they reached a huge chamber shaped like a hollow sphere. Floating panels circled the room, turning slowly like they were orbiting an invisible planet. Vexa stepped toward one of them and brushed her fingers along the surface. Symbols lit up instantly, glowing with a soft pulse. That language again. Jace said, noticing the same runes he saw inside the ship. Yes, Vexa replied. Architect script. But these panels are reacting too fast. She turned to him. This station isn't waking for me. Her gaze locked onto him like she already guessed the answer. It's waking for you, Jace. Opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the entire chamber shifted. The floating panels rotated rapidly and formed a large holographic shape in the center. A figure tall, human-shaped, made of pure blue light stood before them. It had no face, just a smooth, glowing mask. Yet Jace felt a strange, deep recognition. The figure raised an arm slowly, pointing toward Jace. A voice echoed around the chamber, deep and metallic, but gentle. Human pilot detected. Jace's breath caught in his throat as the voice continued. Prepare for awakening. Vexa stepped back in shock. Awakening what? The lights around the chamber brightened until they were almost blinding. Symbols appeared in the air, orbiting Jace like glowing feathers. He felt a warmth spreading through his chest. Flowing into his arms and legs, the ship floating outside responded instantly, rumbling like it sensed the connection growing stronger. Jace tried to move away, but his feet felt anchored to the ground. What's happening to me? He yelled. Voice trembling, the holographic figure extended both hands toward him. From its palms, blue energy streamed forward, wrapping around Jace like living light. Vexa ran toward him but hit an invisible barrier that blocked her path. Jace, she shouted, slamming her fist against the wall of light. P couldn't hear her clearly, the chamber filled with a deep humming sound that vibrated through his bones. Images flashed through his mind. Ancient pilots, battles across the stars, architect cities rising and falling. He saw beings who looked almost human, piloting living ships with their emotions. He saw a war that wiped them out, a final battle they could not win. He saw the architects hiding their last ships and beacons, waiting for someone. For a successor. The hologram's voice returned, clear and strong. Emotional resonance detected. Genetic compatibility confirmed. You are the key. Jace gasped as the light tightened around him like a cocoon. Vexa pounded on the barrier, her voice cracking with anger. Let him go. You can't take him. But the chamber didn't react to her at all. Only to him, the energy finally released him, dropping him to his knees. The light faded, and the holographic figure disappeared into the dark again. The room fell silent, except for Jace's ragged breathing. Vexa rushed to him, kneeling beside him. What did you see? She whispered. Jace lifted his eyes, glowing faintly with leftover energy. They weren't waiting for just anyone, he said softly. They were waiting for humans. A loud alarm echoed through the chamber suddenly. The station trembled outside, through a small window. Jace saw the impossible, the remaining Raider flagship emerging from the nebula clouds. Heading straight toward them, and the station's voice spoke one last time. Awakening phase incomplete. Pilot in danger. The entire structure began to react. And Jace realized this ancient place wasn't done with him yet. The ancient station trembled as the Raider flagship pushed through the nebula clouds. Its red engines burned like angry suns. Lighting the broken metal walls around Jace and Vexa, Jace struggled to his feet, still dizzy from the awakening energy that had flooded through his body. The symbols floating around him slowly faded, leaving only a soft blue glow in his eyes. Vexa grabbed his arm, pulling him upright. Can you walk? She asked. Voice sharp but worried underneath. Jace nodded shakily. I think so. The station shook again as the Raider flagship fired a massive pulse blast. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow. The glowing panels flickered in panic, reacting to the danger. "We need to get back to the ship," Vexa said. Now she pulled Jace toward the exit, but the station doors sealed themselves. "Glowing bright blue? What now?" Jace whispered. The station's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and ancient. "Pilot must complete the sequence." "I don't have time for sequences," Jace shouted back. "We are going to die." But the station ignored him. A new hologram formed above the center platform, showing the derelict ship outside, shaking under the raiders' incoming attack. Vexa's eyes narrowed as she watched the display. "They're trying to break the ship open," she said. "They want the core. And they want me," Jace added quietly. The station pulsed again, and a symbol appeared on the floor beneath him. A perfect circle of blue light waiting for him like an ancient test. "Step into the resonance field," the station commanded. Vexa looked at him, confused. "Do you trust it?" Jace didn't know if he trusted anything anymore. Not the station, not his strange new connection, not his suddenly glowing eyes. But he trusted one thing. The raiders outside would kill them if he didn't do something. He stepped into the circle. Instantly, energy burst upward around him. It felt warm, powerful, alive. The chamber lit up like a small star, shaking the metal around them. Vexa shielded her eyes, yelling something he couldn't hear. The light wrapped around him, lifting him slightly above the floor. Memories and knowledge rushed into his mind. Pilot commands, flight instincts, emotion channeling techniques, not words or lessons, more like instincts waking up inside him. A forgotten language remembered again. When the light faded, Jace landed gently. He opened his eyes and the blue glow inside them burned brighter. Vexa stared at him like she was seeing someone new. "What did it do to you?" she whispered. Jace shook his head slowly. "It prepared me." The station doors opened instantly. As if bowing to him, pilot readiness confirmed. The station said, "Go," Vexa shouted, grabbing him and running down the corridor. "The ship needs you." They sprinted through the twisting halls until they reached the docking ramp. The living ship outside was surrounded by raider drones and heavy guns. The hull glowed faintly, struggling to defend itself. When Jace stepped onto the ramp, the ship reacted with a loud heartbeat-like thump. The lights brightened, the engines roared. It felt like the ship was relieved he returned. Inside the cockpit chamber, everything lit up with sharp blue lines. The seat reshaped itself around him the moment he sat down. Vexa jumped into her co-pilot chair, loading her weapons into the control panels. The Raider flagship moved closer, its massive shadow swallowing the nebula light. "Jace," Vexa said, "whatever the station gave you, use it." Jace placed his hands on the glowing controls. A deep pulse rushed through him, connecting him fully with the living ship. He could feel its fear, its strength, its memories. And it could feel his determination. The engines ignited with a roar so powerful the whole station shook. The Raider flagship fired the first blast. Jace didn't think he reacted. The ship swung sharply downward. Dodging the beam by inches, the movement was smooth. Like the ship was reading his instincts before he even acted. Vexa grinned. "Now you're flying." Dozens of Raider fighters swarmed toward them. Shooting bright red lasers, Jace felt panic rise. But he used it, letting the emotion fuel the ship. The engines glowed hotter. Blue trails slicing through the nebula clouds as he spun the ship into a tight spiral. Vexa fired back, hitting two Raiders with explosive blue shots. "Keep them off us," she shouted. Jace launched upward. Diving between lightning-filled clouds and broken debris, the ship responded faster than ever. Guided by both his fear and his new architect instincts, he could feel the Raiders closing in, dozens of them. Trying to trap him, he pushed harder, letting determination flood through him. The ship pulsed with a massive burst of energy. Blue waves exploded outward, slamming into the Raider fighters and sending them spinning away. Only the flagship remained, looming like a giant metal beast. Vexa tensed. Here comes the big one. The flagship fired a huge beam, bright enough to blind. Jace felt the ship reaching into him, searching for one last emotion to fuel itself. He thought of Earth, of freedom, of survival, of Vexa fighting beside him. His determination exploded like fire. The ship unleashed a massive blast of pure blue energy straight from its core. The two beams collided. Purple lightning split the nebula apart, shockwaves shaking the stars around them. And then the flagship cracked open, exploding in a burst of red and black flame. Silence filled the cockpit as the light faded. Vexa let out a slow breath, lowering her weapon. "You did it," she whispered. Jace leaned back in the seat, exhausted but alive. The ship hummed softly, almost like a proud sigh. Vexa looked at him with a new expression, respect, and something more. "So," she said quietly. "Captain," Jace blinked. "Captain," she nodded. "The ship chose you." Jace looked out at the swirling nebula, the ancient beacon glowing behind them.